Congressman Lazarette, thanks for joining us this week.
Yep.
Let's jump right into things. The president finally unveiled his budget this week, a little late, but he did unveil his budget. Talk to us a little bit about what's in it and what does it mean?
Well, the Budget Act of 1974 requires the President of the United States to deliver a budget up to Capitol Hill in February. It's hardly ever on time. This budget was a little more on time than last year's budget, which didn't come up to the Hill until April. It proposes to spend $3.9 trillion. And, you know, I served for 18 years and I've watched this process. I'm not aware of any budget that a president has proposed that actually gets adopted by the Congress. This one is going to have a little rockier road in that, you know, we've talked before that at the end of last year, Senator Murray and Congressman Ryan reached the Ryan-Murray budget agreement, and what was unusual about it, it was a 2-year agreement. So the numbers that the Congress has to work off of to create the spending bills has already been set. So it really doesn't matter what the president, you know, the top line numbers have been set. But having said that, you know, the president and every president uses the budget to sort of lay down and demarcate their priorities. You know, for people in real estate and investing, it proposes to do away with something called carried interest. That if you don't know what it is, then you're probably not in the business. And
then you probably don't care.
Yeah, right. But then on the other side,
fast forward to that part.
On the other side, you know, the president is making his pitch this year on income disparity. So he, you know, he talks about increasing the minimum wage and other opportunities for people that aren't making as much money. But again, at the end of the day, $3.9 trillion, it's not going anywhere.
Well, I wanted to ask you one follow-up question. Mm-hmm. The only thing that kind of jumped out, I think, at some folks was the president's proposal on transportation, on infrastructure spending. Yep. A lot of it aimed at urban areas, actually. Yeah. And I know that Secretary Fox said this week that they are looking at population trends, and a lot of this stuff is trending towards the big urban areas. Mm-hmm. A lot of money, particularly for the D.C. metro area, for building the Red Line in Baltimore, expanding metro service in Maryland and Northern Virginia. Does it mean anything that that we have this, even if it's just kind of laying out a marker, this kind of renewed emphasis on infrastructure? Well, yeah. I mean, I do think it's important. And we talked that the president had given a speech a week ago laying out $304 billion over a 4-year period. And I think that that's significant when you couple it with what Dave Camp was doing in his tax reform proposal, setting aside $125 billion. And so it's good to have that conversation. The weakness in the president's proposal, however, continues to be that the numbers are nice in terms of a marker, a goal to get to, but nowhere does he have any suggestion as to where the money's going to come from. and that's, you know, that's the problem we've had with the highway program for a number of years. But it doesn't surprise me. The big push, if you think about who represents what areas of the country. Democrats tend to represent urban areas, major urban areas. Republicans represent suburbs and rural areas. And so a lot of the focus is, and the president's a Democrat, by the Democrats is on the urban areas on something called livability, sustainability, walkability. And a lot of his initiatives are aimed at that. So we had a little interesting dust-up in D.C. this week, as we tend to have from time to time. Darrell Issa and Elijah Cummings. Talk to us a little bit about what happened.
Well, this week there was sort of a repeat. You may remember that there was a scandal, I call it a scandal, where the IRS was targeting conservative groups and reviewing their tax-exempt status, giving them closer scrutiny than they were allegedly giving everybody else. At the center of this storm was a woman by the name of Lois Lerner. Lois Lerner came and took the Fifth Amendment at the previous hearing, but over the weekend, Chairman Issa, Darrell Issa, Congressman, Republican from California, went on Fox News and claimed he had some bombshell new information. And the information was that according to Ms. Lerner's lawyer, she was now going to bear all and testify and everything else. So they had a hearing. At the hearing, I don't know where Congressman Issa got his information, but Ms. Lerner took the fifth again, which caused Issa to blow up. And then Elijah Cumming, Democrat from Maryland, who's the senior Democrat on the committee, wanted to make a few points, which is probably appropriate. And Chairman Issa shut off his microphone. Just turned it. You can actually, when you watch the clip of the hearing, he's going like this to his staff, which I assume means cut the mic to Elijah Cummings. And then so the news on Thursday is the Congressional Black Caucus, which is headed by Marcia Fudge, a Democrat from Cleveland, Ohio. They put a resolution of censure on the floor condemning Chairman Issa's activities and their calls for his head and chairmanship and a variety of other things. And none of that stuff's going to happen, but it does sort of feed back into this we've talked a lot about, are things getting better, things getting worse. This I think indicates, although an isolated example, that things aren't getting too much better.
Well, we've also talked a lot about Republicans not stepping on themselves, and it seems like, obviously this IRS scandal has been a big one, and it's been a difficult one for the Obama administration, and it's really painted them in a very bad light. And so instead of talking about the problems with the IRS and the what they did, now you're talking about Darrell Issa,
right.
Reacting poorly or overreacting or whatever. I mean, it once again seems like they're stepping on themselves.
Well, and I would tell you, I think it gets worse in that Elijah Cummings had a press conference on Thursday, and he basically said, I wish I could have had the chance to talk, because the question I wanted to ask was that in conversations with Ms. Lerner's attorney, there's apparently some information, a proffer that can be negotiated on certain things would be given to her in return for this testimony. And I wanted to see if that was worth exploring so that the committee could actually get the information, which at the end of the day might wind up hanging, the folks at the IRS who were unfairly targeting conservative groups on their tax exempt status. So they not only stepped on themselves, they just to make sure they didn't shoot themselves in one foot, they shot the other foot just for good measure.
Well, in a truly bipartisan fashion, we just didn't have problems for Republicans this week. And we've talked a lot about the kind of infighting in the GOP. This week we saw some fracturing of the Democratic coalition. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, it happened in both the House and the Senate. And again, we've talked about the fact that this midterm election coming up in November, it will be the second midterm of an 8-year president. And historically, the party of that president does horribly in these midterm elections. And so that's sort of the wave that the Democrats are swimming up against. And so what you do see a lot of members of the president's party now, it happened to George W. Bush in 2006, begin to distance themselves from the administration because it doesn't play well in Peoria. So in the House, for instance, there was another delay of the Affordable Care Act, the individual mandate, and the Democratic position was no, but 27 Democrats left Nancy Pelosi and the president's position on this and voted with the Republicans. And if you look at that list of 27, it's 27 Democrats who are in swing districts or in districts where Governor Romney did okay or actually beat the president, and they don't want to be on the bubble defending an unpopular law in their part of the country and support the president. So that's kind of unusual. The other thing that happened is the president had nominated an individual to become the new head of the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department. Very important job. However, somewhere in his career, he had participated in some fashion in a lawsuit that had to do with a fellow who had shot a Philadelphia police officer. And so the FOP organizations, the police organizations, very much opposed. And so again, even though this was the president's nominee, a number of senators, Democratic senators, split from Harry Reid and from the president, and it doesn't look like this fellow is going to be at the Justice Department.
Well, it was an interesting week.
It was great.
Can't wait to see what next week brings here in D.C. Congressman LaTourette, thank you very much.
Good to see you.